California, but even beyond just California, and just in terms of what's happening with technology, which is really exciting for you guys while you're still in school, because you'll be kind of experiencing it as it's happening. So for example, there's the whole issue with what the National Labor Relations Board has come out with recently with respect to employers trying to preclude or prohibit their employees from making negative comments in their Facebook pages about their bosses or their jobs and things like that. There are certain circumstances where just flat out prohibitions against that can get an employer in some trouble, and they can't do that. And there have been some recent cases about that. And so it's just, you know, with the advent of just technology and social media and people talking to each other, it's gotten to be very, very interesting and exciting in terms of looking at and exploring some of those issues. So I just wanted to just add that in there.
We just have another minute or so, but I wanted to, I know Devin already addressed some of this, but I was wondering if the other speakers would comment at all about both why they chose to do or not do litigation, the pros and cons and the passions around that one way or the other, and how your jobs affect your work-life balance. Because I think Devin actually spoke about that already, but I'm curious about the rest of it.
I chose to do litigation because I really enjoyed the advocacy part of the law. I enjoyed legal writing. I enjoyed making an argument before a court and standing behind a position and all that entails and the work behind it. To me, I've always found that particularly rewarding. And you know, that's, I think, the most fun I've had as an attorney is going to trial or doing an arbitration and trying to achieve a result. But trials, one thing to keep in mind is that trials are very rare. They don't happen very frequently because it's an expensive and not just financially but emotionally expensive process to go through. It's very time consuming, especially in San Francisco now. A few months ago, Judge Feinstein issued a memo basically because the cuts in resources of courts, a single plaintiff case in San Francisco now, they're anticipating won't go to trial for 2 years after the complaint is filed. Think about that. That's 2 years of discovery, thinking about the case, and that's just to get to the jury. And then, of course, if there is a trial, there may be appeal thereafter. Resolution can take a long time, so it really is difficult to get to that stage. But if you can, trial's a really rewarding experience. And only the cases that your clients feel very strongly about will go to trial. So, you know, that I wish everyone here got that opportunity. If litigation is what you're interested in.
I think I chose litigation like Mike because I really like the advocacy piece of it, and it's really important to me to be able to go into a court and try and convince a judge or a panel of judges that I was right and that I was there for the right reasons. My client was there for the right reasons. And I think that, I guess the switch for me a little bit was that when I was before law school and during law school, I really liked direct services, and I thought that that was what I would do. I would be a legal aid lawyer, and that's what I would end up doing. I ended up being much more drawn toward two areas I didn't expect. One is impact litigation, so doing class actions where I'm able to affect change for a great number of people. And then two is appellate law, where you really get an opportunity to make a change in the law. Again, that can affect a great number of people. And so that was an interesting sort of revelation for me as I continued on in my practice. And one of the reasons I became the certified appellate specialist, because I really like that process. Sort of typically taking a pretty discrete legal issue and really working it to a point that's very clear and fine, and having a court rule on that. And I've done that with the California Supreme Court and the federal and state courts of appeal. In terms of life-work balance, litigation is challenging that way for sure, I think. I mean, sometimes it's really work and not so much on the life side. But I think if you are smart about it, it's doable, and you can make it work. You know, you learn over time that when there's downtime, you learn how to be really efficient about that so that you're not falling behind, but you're also, for me, I take time for myself during that time. And I also am really good about kind of building in what I need to do for myself. Like, I think I was probably in the best physical shape I was in the last trial that I did, because I swam every single day. I worked out for an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, because I needed that space in my life to like think and process and kind of have some decompression time. And so I think there are a lot of ways to work it out. I do think it's really challenging, and there are times when you feel like, wow, times that I feel like, wow, I could use a little bit less on the work front, but it's doable, and it's ultimately so rewarding for me that it feels balanced.
Galen, do you have any closing comments and questions?
Oh, sure. Well, a couple of things. I mean, certainly, Michael is correct. On the civil side, definitely not very many cases end up going to trial. There's not a lot of opportunity to be in court. However, if you were interested in, let's say, criminal-related work, you might get more opportunity to be in trial and be in courtroom if that was an area of interest. So just keep that in mind. When I was in school, I didn't want to litigate. I didn't want to have this adversarial relationship. I wanted to negotiate and create and do deals and do transactions. And so some of the most fun that I've had is when we work on a project and we put something together and then I can see the output of that. Some of the examples is when I was when I worked for 24 Hour Fitness, we did a lot of co-branding of many of the clubs. So you might see a Magic Johnson 24 Hour Fitness Club. Over in Asia, you'll see a Jackie Chan club. Down in Texas, you'll see a Lance Armstrong club. Out in New York, you'll see a Derek Jeter club. Well, I got to work on pretty much all of those and talk to the attorneys on the other side. Jackie's attorney was very difficult. I didn't like him at all. He was very anal. Lance Armstrong's attorney was fabulous, very smart. I learned a lot from working with him and trying to put that together. And the output is you have this co-branded club, and there's dollars and revenue and royalties and all that. So just seeing how business gets done was really exciting. When I'm at Clorox, there's a fair amount of M&A activity. So probably the biggest deal that the company ever did is when we purchased Burt's Bees and natural line of care products, because that was an area we wanted to go into. So I got to do a lot of the due diligence behind that work and work on that. And that was really, really exciting to add that company into Clorox. Having said that, in law school, I think kind of the natural output or natural result is litigation. I mean, we read cases, we do a lot of writing, we're briefing cases and things like that. So I think that it does point you. I mean, some of these things, I thought I knew what a contract was, but until you see one, it's totally different than just the offer, acceptance, and consideration that we talk about in school. It's a totally different thing. And so I was like, oh wow, is this what it looks like? Okay. So, whereas when you're briefing cases and you're doing that work, you're drafting memos and doing legal research, there's a natural flow if you go into firm life. And so, what I would say to you, I mean, work-life balance, I mean, I think you can get it wherever you are, whether you're in a firm or you're in-house or working for a government agency. I would say on the latter two, people have a tendency to want to work in-house or in a government agency because there's this thing called billable hours that we don't have to do. And so we don't have to account for our time in 6, whatever the increment is nowadays. 0.1, right. But again, if you're good and if you're efficient, I mean, there's value in that too, because you can justify what you've done, you can account for your day. So there's something good to be said about that as well. So what I would just say is, as you're thinking, I think the quality of life can be in either place. I would just say that while you're in school, as best you can, be thinking about what is of interest to you, what area you may want to focus in on, because whether you go in firm or whether you go in-house, it's nice to have your brand, that thing that you're known for, whatever it is. And usually people go work for a firm, develop that expertise, and then they go work for the government, or they go work in-house, and it's just good to have that level of confidence, to know that you're going to be the specific go-to person. There's this one thing that you really, really know about, and people can come to you for that. You may branch out and be a generalist and do a lot of other things, but it's always nice to just have those one or two things that's really just your deal. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Well, our time is up. I want to thank all the panelists who did great to hear this range of activity, and I think you can probably grab them for a minute or two if you have an individual question. Thanks very much.